a doctor was unfairly fired for treating a black child who was unwell on the street. Days later, the entire board was fired because of the child. It was a late autumn evening, and the streets were quiet except for the rustling of leaves underfoot. Dr. Michael Evans walked home after another grueling shift at St. Mark's Hospital. The glow of the streetlights cast long shadows, and Michael pulled his coat tighter against the biting wind. He was exhausted, his mind replaying the events of the day, the diagnoses, the emergencies, and the lives he had touched, for better or worse. As he rounded a corner, Michael noticed something unusual. A young boy, no older than 8, sat hunched on the curb. His small frame shivered in the cold, and his clothes were ill-suited for the weather. Michael's footsteps slowed, and he felt a pang of concern. Children alone at this hour were a rare sight, and this one looked particularly vulnerable. "Hey there," Michael called softly, not wanting to startle the child. He approached slowly, his eyes scanning the boy for any obvious injuries. "Are you okay?" The boy looked up, his eyes wide with fear and pain. His dark skin was pale under the harsh light, and he clutched his stomach as if in great discomfort. Michael's heart raced with concern. "My name is Michael. I'm a doctor. Can I help you?" He knelt beside the child, keeping his voice calm and reassuring. The boy's eyes darted around, clearly scared. I'm Jamie," the boy whispered, his voice barely audible. "My tummy hurts." Michael's professional instincts kicked in. He quickly assessed Jamie's condition, noting the boy's labored breathing and the sweat beading on his forehead despite the cold. Michael knew he needed to act fast. "Jamie, can you tell me if you've eaten anything today? Or if you fell or got hurt?" Michael asked, gently placing a hand on Jamie's shoulder. Jamie shook his head weakly. "No, I don't know. I just feel really bad." Michael's mind raced through possible diagnoses. Appendicitis, food poisoning, whatever it was, Jamie needed medical attention and fast. But calling an ambulance would take too long, and with each passing moment, Jamie's condition seemed to worsen. "All right, Jamie, I'm gonna help you, okay? We're going to the hospital," Michael said, his voice firm with determination. He knew the hospital's policies about off-duty assistance were strict, but this was an emergency. There was no time to lose. Michael scooped Jamie into his arms, the boy's small frame light and fragile. He started walking briskly towards St. Mark's, his breath forming clouds in the chilly air. As he walked, he kept talking to Jamie, trying to keep him awake and responsive. "Do you have any family nearby, Jamie? Anyone I can call?" Michael asked, hoping to get more information. Jamie went in pain but managed to nod. "My mom, she's at work. She works late. I was walking home, but then I felt sick." Michael's heart ached for the boy. It was clear he had been trying to get home on his own, a task far too big for someone his age, especially in his condition. As they neared the hospital, Michael felt a sense of urgency pressing down on him. He quickened his pace, determined to get Jamie the help he needed. They finally reached the emergency entrance of St. Mark's. The automatic doors slid open, and Michael hurried inside, calling out to the triage nurse. "Emergency! I need a stretcher and a pediatric team. Now!" he shouted, his voice echoing in the sterile hallway. Nurses and doctors sprang into action, and within moments, Jamie was whisked away to an examination room. Michael stood back, watching as his colleagues took over. He felt a mix of relief and anxiety, hoping that Jamie would be all right. The boy's pain had been all too real, and Michael couldn't shake the feeling that he had done the right thing, despite the potential consequences. As he waited in the hallway, Michael's thoughts were interrupted by a familiar voice. "Dr. Evans, what are you doing here?" It was Dr. Sarah Mitchell, one of the hospital's senior administrators. She looked at him with a mix of curiosity and concern. Michael took a deep breath and explained the situation. "I found a young boy, very sick, alone on the street. I couldn't just leave him there, Sarah. He needed help immediately." Sarah's expression softened slightly, but there was still a hint of worry in her eyes. You know the rules about off-duty assistance, Michael. This could get complicated. I know, Michael replied, his voice resolute. But I couldn't ignore him. He was in serious pain, and there was no time to wait for an ambulance. I did what I had to do. Sarah sighed, nodding slowly. Let's hope the board sees it that way. For now, let's focus on getting Jamie the care he needs. Hours passed, and Michael remained at the hospital, unable to leave until he knew Jamie was safe. Finally, a pediatric specialist emerged from the examination room, a look of calm on her face. He's going to be all right, she said, smiling at Michael. We caught it just in time, Cheryl. It looks like it was a severe case of appendicitis. He's in surgery now, and we're optimistic about his recovery. Relief washed over Michael, and he thanked the doctor sincerely. As he turned to leave, he felt a heavy weight lift from his shoulders, knowing that Jamie was in good hands. However, the next morning, Michael's relief turned to apprehension as he was summoned to a meeting with the hospital board. He knew what was coming, but he stood by his decision, prepared to face the consequences. As he entered the boardroom, the stern faces of the administrators greeted him. Dr. Sarah Mitchell was there, along with several other senior members. Dr. Evans, the head of the board, began, his tone formal. We understand you assisted a patient off duty last night in direct violation of hospital policy. Michael nodded, his expression calm but determined. Yes, I did. The child was in immediate need of medical attention. I couldn't ignore him. The head of the board exchanged glances with the others before continuing. While we appreciate your dedication to patient care, rules are in place for a reason. Effective immediately, your employment at St. Mark's is terminated. The words hit Michael like a punch to the gut, but he held his head high. I understand, he said simply, standing up to leave. As he walked out of the hospital, his mind raced with uncertainty about the future. But one thing was clear. He had done what he believed was right, and he would face the consequences with his head held high. Outside, the sun was just beginning to rise, casting a warm glow over the city. Michael took a deep breath, feeling a strange mix of loss and resolve. He had helped save Jamie's life, and that was something no one could take away from him. The morning after Michael's dismissal, the city buzzed with the usual hum of activity. St. Mark's Hospital, however, was a place of whispers and hushed conversations. The news of Dr. Michael Evans' termination had spread quickly among the staff, and opinions were sharply divided. Michael, now jobless, sat in his small apartment, sipping a cup of lukewarm coffee. His mind replayed the events of the previous night over and over. He had no regrets about helping Jamie, but the reality of his situation was sinking in. The termination letter lay open on the kitchen table, a stark reminder of the consequences he now faced. His phone buzzed, breaking the silence. It was a message from his friend and fellow doctor, Lisa Martinez. Hey, Michael, heard what happened? Meet me at the cafe on 5th? We need to talk. Michael sighed and replied with a quick confirmation. Lisa had always been a supportive colleague, and he could use a friendly ear right now. He grabbed his coat and headed out, the cold air biting at his cheeks as he walked. The cafe on 5th was a cozy spot, a favorite among the hospital staff. As Michael entered, the familiar smell of freshly brewed coffee greeted him, bringing a small sense of comfort. Lisa was already there, sitting in a corner booth with 2 steaming cups in front of her. Hey, she greeted him with a warm smile. I got you your usual. Thanks, Lisa, Michael said, sliding into the seat opposite her. He wrapped his hands around the cup, savoring the warmth. It's been a rough morning. I can imagine, Lisa replied, her expression serious. What you did for that kid, it was incredible, Michael. But the board, they're strict about those policies. I know, Michael said, nodding. I just couldn't leave him there. He was so scared and in so much pain. Lisa reached across the table and squeezed his hand. You did the right thing. Anyone with a heart would agree. But the hospital, it's a different story. Michael sighed, looking out the window. The street outside was bustling with people going about their day, unaware of the turmoil inside him. What am I going to do now, Lisa? This job was everything to me. First, take a deep breath, Lisa advised, her voice calm and steady. We'll figure this out. There are other hospitals, other opportunities, and I'm sure the community will back you up. Everyone knows what a great doctor you are. Michael appreciated her words, but the uncertainty of the future still loomed large. He took a sip of his coffee, trying to gather his thoughts. As they talked, a man approached their table, looking somewhat hesitant. "Excuse me, are you Dr. Michael Evans?" "Yes, I am," Michael replied, curious. "I just wanted to say thank you," the man said, his voice sincere. "I heard about what you did for that boy. My son goes to the same school. You're a hero to a lot of us parents. We're all behind you." Michael was taken aback, his eyes widening with surprise. "Thank you. That means a lot." The man nodded and left, leaving Michael with a renewed sense of purpose. Maybe Lisa was right. Maybe he wasn't alone in this. Later that afternoon, Michael received another call. This time it was from a local journalist who had caught wind of the story. "Dr. Evans, my name is Emily Sanders with the City Times. I'd love to get your side of the story about what happened with Jamie. Would you be willing to do an interview?" Michael hesitated. He wasn't sure if he wanted more attention drawn to the situation, but perhaps sharing his story could help shed light on the rigid policies that led to his firing. "All right, I'll do it," he agreed. "When and where?" Emily suggested a small park near the hospital, a neutral and quiet place where they could talk without interruptions. Michael arrived early, his nerves on edge. He wasn't used to being in the spotlight, preferring the quiet, steady work of the ER. Emily greeted him with a professional yet friendly demeanor. They found a bench under a large oak tree and sat down to begin the interview. "Dr. Evans, can you tell me what happened that night?" Emily asked, her voice gentle. Michael recounted the events from finding Jamie on the curb to the moments in the hospital that led to his dismissal. As he spoke, he saw the concern in Emily's eyes, the way she leaned in, fully engaged in his story. "What motivated you to help Jamie, despite knowing the hospital's strict policies?" Emily asked. Michael took a deep breath. "I became a doctor to help people, not to follow bureaucratic rules. Jamie needed immediate care. Any delay could have been fatal. I did what I thought was right." Emily nodded, jotting down notes. "How has the community responded to your actions?" "Surprisingly supportive," Michael admitted. "I've had strangers come up to me, thanking me. It's been overwhelming, but in a good way." As the interview wrapped up, Emily thanked Michael and promised to give his story the attention it deserved. Michael left the park feeling lighter, hopeful that his story might make a difference. The next morning, Michael woke to a flurry of messages and calls. Emily's article had been published, and it was generating a lot of attention. The headline read, "Fire for Compassion, the story of Dr. Michael Evans." Social media was abuzz with support for Michael. Hashtags like #SupportDrEvans and #HeroDoctor trended locally. People were sharing their own stories of Michael's kindness and dedication, painting a picture of a doctor who truly cared about his patients. Even the local news stations picked up the story, broadcasting segments that highlighted both the rigid policies of St. Mark's and the heroism of Michael's actions. The public outcry was growing, and it wasn't long before the hospital board took notice. By the end of the week, Michael received an unexpected call from Dr. Sarah Mitchell. "Michael, the board wants to meet with you again," she said, her tone more conciliatory than before. "There's been a lot of public support for you. They're reconsidering their decision." Michael felt a mix of relief and apprehension. This wasn't over yet, but at least he had a chance to fight for his job and, more importantly, for what was right. As he prepared for the meeting, Michael knew that whatever the outcome, He had already won something far more important, the respect and support of his community, and that, he realized, was worth more than any job title. A few days after the interview, the city was buzzing with anticipation for the introduction of St. Mark's new hospital director. Dr. Evelyn Roberts was set to give her first public address, and the media, staff, and community members eagerly awaited her appearance. The air was thick with curiosity and the promise of change. Michael, dressed in a crisp suit, felt a mix of nerves and resolve as he approached the hospital auditorium. The support he had received from the community had been overwhelming, and today felt like a pivotal moment. He hoped that Dr. Roberts would bring a fresh perspective and perhaps even address the issues that led to his termination. The auditorium was packed. Hospital staff, journalists, and community members filled the seats, their murmurs creating a low hum of excitement. Michael spotted Lisa in the crowd, giving him an encouraging nod. He took a deep breath and found a seat near the front, determined to hear every word. At precisely 10 a.m., the lights dimmed and a spotlight illuminated the stage. Dr. Evelyn Roberts, a tall, composed woman with a commanding presence, stepped up to the podium. Her eyes scanned the audience, a hint of a smile playing on her lips. "Good morning, everyone," she began, her voice clear and confident. "Thank you for being here today. I am honored to stand before you as the new director of St. Mark's Hospital. This institution has a long history of excellence, and I am committed to continuing that legacy while also embracing necessary changes." Michael listened intently, his heart pounding. He wondered what kind of leader Dr. Roberts would be and whether she would address the recent controversy surrounding his dismissal. Dr. Roberts continued, speaking about her vision for the hospital, the importance of compassionate care, and her plans to strengthen the hospital's ties with the community. Her words were met with applause and nods of approval from the audience. "And now," she said, pausing to look around the room, "I want to address an issue that has deeply affected this hospital and our community. Recently, one of our doctors, Dr. Michael Evans, was terminated for providing emergency care to a child off duty. This decision has sparked significant public outcry and brought to light the need for us to reevaluate our policies." The room fell silent, all eyes on Michael. He felt a mixture of hope and anxiety, unsure of what would come next. Dr. Roberts took a deep breath and continued, "I believe in strict policies to ensure order and safety. However, I also believe in compassion, humanity, and doing what is right. The child Dr. Evans helped, Jamie, is my son." Gasps echoed through the auditorium. Michael's eyes widened in shock, and he felt as though the ground had shifted beneath him. He exchanged stunned glances with Lisa, who looked equally astonished. Dr. Roberts's voice softened, filled with emotion. "Jamie had wandered off from his babysitter and fell ill on the street. If it weren't for Dr. Evans's quick intervention, my son might not be here today. For that, I am eternally grateful." The room erupted into applause, a powerful wave of support that washed over Michael. He felt tears sting his eyes, overwhelmed by the moment. "Dr. Evans," Dr. Roberts called, looking directly at him, "please join me on stage." With trembling hands, Michael stood and made his way to the front. The applause grew louder, and as he climbed the steps to the stage, he felt a sense of vindication and pride. Dr. Roberts extended her hand, and Michael shook it, his emotions threatening to spill over. "Thank you, Dr. Evans, for your courage and compassion," she said warmly. Michael cleared his throat, finding his voice. "Thank you, Dr. Roberts. I'm just glad I could help Jamie." Dr. Roberts turned back to the audience. "In light of this, I am reinstating Dr. Evans immediately. Furthermore, we will be reviewing and revising our policies to ensure that they align with our commitment to compassionate care and the well-being of our community." The applause was deafening. Michael felt a surge of relief and gratitude. This was more than just getting his job back. It was a triumph for the principles he believed in. As the applause died down, Dr. Roberts continued with her address, outlining specific steps the hospital would take to implement policy changes and improve community engagement. Michael listened, feeling a renewed sense of hope and purpose. After the address, Michael found himself surrounded by well-wishers and colleagues, all eager to congratulate him and express their support. Lisa was among them, beaming with pride. "You did it, Michael," she said, hugging him tightly. "You stood up for what's right, and it made a difference." Michael smiled, feeling the weight of the past few weeks lift from his shoulders. "I couldn't have done it without everyone's support." "Thank you, Lisa." As the crowd began to disperse, Dr. Roberts approached Michael once more. "I'd like to discuss some ideas with you, Dr. Evans," she said. "I believe your experience and perspective could be invaluable as we move forward." "I'd be honored, Dr. Roberts," Michael replied, feeling a sense of partnership and possibility. Over the next few days, Michael and Dr. Roberts worked closely together, discussing ways to improve the hospital's policies and foster a more compassionate environment. They held meetings with staff, listened to feedback, and began implementing changes that emphasized the importance of empathy and patient care. The community's response was overwhelmingly positive. Patients and their families felt more valued and heard, and the staff appreciated the new direction the hospital was taking. Michael's story had sparked a movement, and together with Dr. Roberts, he was helping to lead the charge. One afternoon, as Michael was walking through the hospital, he saw Jamie in the hallway, holding his mother's hand. The boy's face lit up when he saw Michael, and he ran over, hugging him tightly. "Thank you for helping me, Dr. Evans," Jamie said, his voice filled with genuine gratitude. Michael knelt down to Jamie's level, smiling warmly. "You're very welcome, Jamie. I'm glad you're feeling better." Dr. Roberts watched the exchange with a smile. "Jamie talks about you all the time, Dr. Evans. You've made quite an impression." Michael felt his heart swell with emotion. "He's a special boy. I'm just glad I was there when he needed help." As he stood up, he looked around the bustling hospital, feeling a renewed sense of purpose and fulfillment. This was more than just a job. It was a calling, a chance to make a real difference in people's lives. And with the support of his colleagues, the community, and the new director, Michael knew that St. Mark's was on the path to becoming a place where compassion and excellence went hand in hand. In the days following Dr. Evelyn Roberts' public address, the atmosphere at St. Mark's Hospital was charged with a sense of transformation. The staff felt a renewed energy, and the corridors buzzed with hopeful conversations. Michael Evans, now reinstated, became a symbol of change and resilience. However, the hospital board was not as easily swayed. One crisp morning, Michael found himself back in the familiar boardroom, but this time the mood was different. The board members who had once viewed him with stern disapproval now seemed divided. Dr. Roberts sat at the head of the table, her presence commanding respect. "Thank you all for being here," Dr. Roberts began, her voice steady. "Today, we need to discuss the next steps for our hospital. The recent events have shown us that our policies need to reflect our values of compassion and patient care." The head of the board, Mr. Thomas Harding, cleared his throat. He was an older man, set in his ways, and had been a staunch supporter of the strict protocols that led to Michael's dismissal. "Dr. Roberts, while I appreciate your perspective, we cannot simply disregard policies that ensure order and safety in our institution." Michael felt a surge of frustration, but remained silent, trusting Dr. Roberts to navigate the conversation. "I agree, Mr. Harding," Dr. Roberts replied calmly. "However, we must also recognize that rigid policies can sometimes prevent us from acting in the best interests of our patients. Dr. Evans' actions saved my son's life. That should be a clear indicator that our policies need to be more flexible in emergency situations." Mr. Harding frowned, but before he could respond, another board member, Miss Linda Parker, spoke up. I've received numerous letters and emails from the community expressing their support for Dr. Evans. They feel strongly that he did the right thing, and I agree. We need to find a balance between protocol and compassion." A murmur of agreement spread through the room, and Michael felt a glimmer of hope. "Dr. Roberts," continued, "I propose that we form a committee to review our current policies and recommend changes that prioritize patient care while maintaining safety and order." Dr. Evans has graciously agreed to serve on this committee, bringing his first-hand experience to the table. Michael nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility but also a sense of purpose. He knew this was his chance to make a lasting impact. Mr. Harding sighed, his resistance softening slightly. "Very well. Let's see what the committee recommends. But I want to ensure that any changes are thoroughly vetted and do not compromise our hospital's standards." The meeting concluded with a tentative agreement to move forward with the review. As Michael left the boardroom, Dr. Roberts caught up with him. "You handled yourself well in there," she said, a hint of a smile on her lips. "Thank you, Dr. Roberts," Michael replied. "I'm just glad we're taking steps in the right direction. Call me Evelyn," she said warmly. "And yes, I believe we are. We have a lot of work ahead, but I'm confident we can create positive change." Over the next few weeks, the committee met regularly, diving deep into the hospital's policies and procedures. They held open forums, inviting input from staff, patients, and community members. Michael found himself working closely with a diverse group of people, all united by a common goal. One evening, after a particularly productive meeting, Michael and Lisa sat in the hospital cafeteria, discussing their progress. "It's amazing how much support we've gotten," Lisa said, her eyes bright with enthusiasm. "People really care about making things better here." "Yeah," Michael agreed, sipping his coffee. "I think everyone just needed a push to see that change is possible, and having Evelyn on our side makes a huge difference." Lisa nodded. "She's a force to be reckoned with. By the way, how are you holding up?" "This has been a whirlwind," Michael smiled, though there was a hint of weariness in his eyes. "I'm doing all right. It's been intense, but I feel like we're actually making a difference, and that makes it all worth it." As the committee continued its work, the hospital began to implement some immediate changes. New training programs were introduced to emphasize compassionate care and ethical decision-making. Staff were encouraged to share their experiences and suggestions for improvement. One afternoon, Michael was approached by Sarah Mitchell, the senior administrator who had initially reprimanded him. "Dr. Evans, can we talk?" she asked, her tone more conciliatory than before. "Of course, Sarah," Michael replied, curious about what she had to say. They found a quiet corner of the hospital garden, where Sarah took a deep breath before speaking. "I wanted to apologize for how things were handled. I was following protocol, but I realize now that I should have supported you more. Your actions were heroic, and I'm sorry for the pain my decision caused you." Michael was taken aback by her sincerity. "Thank you, Sarah. I appreciate that. I know you were just doing your job, and I hope we can move forward together." She smiled, a weight lifting from her shoulders. "I'd like that, and if there's anything I can do to help with the committee's work, please let me know." As the weeks turned into months, the committee's recommendations began to take shape. They proposed a tiered approach to policy changes, ensuring that staff had the flexibility to act in emergencies while maintaining clear guidelines for standard procedures. They also suggested the creation of a support network for staff dealing with ethical dilemmas, providing resources and counseling to help them navigate difficult situations. The hospital board reviewed the proposals carefully. Mr. Harding, though initially resistant, had come to see the value in the changes. "These recommendations strike a good balance," he admitted during one meeting. "I'm willing to support them, provided we monitor their implementation closely." The final approval of the new policies was met with widespread approval. The community, who had closely followed the developments, celebrated the hospital's commitment to compassionate care. St. Mark's began to earn a reputation not just for medical excellence, but for its dedication to putting patients first. One sunny afternoon, Michael stood outside the hospital, watching as a group of children played in the nearby park. Jamie, now fully recovered, was among them, his laughter a joyful reminder of why all this work mattered. Evelyn joined him, a satisfied smile on her face. "We've come a long way, Michael." "We have," Michael agreed, feeling a deep sense of fulfillment. "And I think we're just getting started." Evelyn nodded. "Here's to a future where compassion and excellence go hand in hand." As they stood there side by side, Michael knew that they had created something truly special. St. Mark's was more than just a hospital. It was a beacon of hope, a place where people came to heal not just their bodies, but their spirits. And for Michael, that was the greatest reward of all. The changes at St. Mark's Hospital were becoming more apparent with each passing day. The atmosphere was lighter, the staff more engaged, and the patients felt genuinely cared for. Dr. Michael Evans walked through the halls with a sense of pride and fulfillment, knowing he had played a part in this transformation. It was a bright morning when Michael found himself once again in the boardroom, but this time it was for a celebration. The new policies had been in place for several months, and the results were overwhelmingly positive. The hospital had received numerous letters of thanks from patients and their families, praising the compassionate care they had received. Dr. Evelyn Roberts stood at the head of the table, a broad smile on her face. "I want to thank each and every one of you for your hard work and dedication," she began. "We've come a long way, and it's all because of the incredible team we have here at St. Mark's." The board members and staff in the room applauded, the sound filled with genuine appreciation. Michael felt a sense of camaraderie, knowing that they had all worked together to make these changes possible. Evelyn continued, "There's one person in particular I'd like to recognize today. Dr. Michael Evans. Please come up here." Michael stood, his heart pounding with a mix of pride and humility. As he walked to the front of the room, he saw the faces of his colleagues, all of whom had supported him throughout this journey. "Michael," Evelyn said, turning to face him, "your actions set in motion the changes that have made St. Mark's a better place. Your courage and compassion have inspired us all. It is my great honor to present you with this award for outstanding service and dedication." She handed him a beautifully crafted plaque, inscribed with words that echoed the sentiments of everyone in the room. Michael accepted it, feeling the weight of the recognition and the love behind it. "Thank you," he said, his voice steady. "This award is for all of us. We've all worked together to make St. Mark's what it is today. I'm proud to be a part of this team." The applause that followed was thunderous, and Michael felt a profound sense of gratitude. As he returned to his seat, he saw Lisa beaming at him, her eyes glistening with tears of joy. After the meeting, Michael and Evelyn took a walk through the hospital gardens, a serene place where staff and patients often came to find a moment of peace. "I couldn't have done this without you," Michael said, his voice sincere. "You believed in me when it mattered most." Evelyn smiled, her gaze soft. "It wasn't hard to believe in someone who was clearly doing the right thing. We needed a wake-up call, and you provided it. Now, it's up to all of us to keep this momentum going." As they walked, they passed by the children's ward, where Jamie and several other kids were playing. Seeing Jamie's bright smile always warmed Michael's heart. It reminded him of why he had become a doctor in the first place. A few days later, the hospital held a community event to celebrate the new changes. Families, former patients, and staff gathered in the large courtyard, enjoying food, music, and games. Michael walked among them, chatting and laughing, feeling a sense of belonging. At one point, Jamie ran up to him, his face glowing with excitement. "Dr. Evans, look, I made a drawing of you." Michael knelt down to look at the picture. It showed a tall figure with a stethoscope, standing heroically beside a child. Michael felt a lump in his throat as he smiled at Jamie. "This is amazing, Jamie. Thank you. I'm going to keep this in my office." Jamie beamed with pride and ran back to his friends, leaving Michael with a deep sense of fulfillment. As the sun began to set, casting a golden glow over the courtyard, Michael found a quiet spot to sit and reflect. Lisa joined him, handing him a cup of lemonade. "Quite the day," she said, her voice filled with warmth. "Yeah," Michael replied, taking a sip. "It's been incredible. I still can't believe how much has changed." Lisa nodded. "You made it happen, Michael. You stood up for what was right, and now look at where we are." Michael smiled, feeling the truth of her words. "We all made it happen, and I'm just grateful to be part of it." The event wound down, and people began to leave, carrying within the spirit of the celebration. Michael stayed a while longer, watching as the stars began to appear in the sky. He thought about the journey he had been on from the moment he found Jamie on the street to the day he was reinstated, and all the challenges they had faced together. Evelyn approached him, her expression thoughtful. "It's been quite a ride, hasn't it?" "It has," Michael agreed, "and I wouldn't trade it for anything." Evelyn nodded, looking up at the stars. "We've done something special here, and I have a feeling it's just the beginning." Michael felt a sense of peace settle over him. "I think you're right. Here's to the future." As they stood there side by side watching the sky, Michael knew that St. Mark's was more than just a place of healing. It was a community, a family, and a beacon of hope, and he was proud to be part of its story. The changes they had made would continue to ripple outward, touching lives and inspiring others. Michael felt a profound sense of purpose and looked forward to the future with hope and determination.